Hello, my name is Dipankar, and welcome to this presentation. I am basically an SAP BTP developer slash architect, and today I'm very excited to present a demonstration on observability using OpenTelemetry in SAP BTP. So hope you will enjoy the demonstration. So I have divided this video in two parts. The first part will actually we will discuss a little bit about observability in general and what is OpenTelemetry and how we can use it in SAP BTP. What is the benefits of using it? And second part deals with the demo itself. Okay, so what is observability? So we are all developing applications in SAP BTP, right? We are developing REST APIs or API proxies, or we are creating, CAP application, front end apps. We're also creating workflows and automations and so many other. And all these particular components that we are creating, all of them are sort of interrelated with each other, right? So imagine if you're creating a workflow and automation, there we can define an action which connects with a CAP application. And the CAP application might be depending on one API proxy to connect with the S4 backend, or it can also connect with a REST API in cloud integration to connect with a third party. Or it can also get some data from the event mesh itself. And probably it massages the data a little bit before providing it to the workflow automation. So there are so many discrete applications in the ecosystem. So we need observability. So with observability, what we get is we get an insight and control on what is actually going on in the system. So when we're designing a complex solution, it comprises of several technologies, and all of these technologies are different, then observability becomes a very key feature of success. And also we need to measure a lot of things. So whenever we are working with observability, it gives us an opportunity to define a lot of dimensions of measurement with which we want to view a transaction. So also, if you look at a very realistic customer scenario or the customer landscape, there will be a lot of non-SAP products as well. Like for example, there will be a pool of Node.js microservices or a pool of Java services. All these particular applications are also connected in some way, or they are interacting with us. So how do we make sure that we have some sort of a framework which is kind of technology agnostic, yet it provides us with an observability feature? And that is what OpenTelemetry does for us. So uh, what is OpenTelemetry? OpenTelemetry actually is nothing but it is uh, a framework, or it's a set of SDKs or APIs or tooling or whatever you can say. It is designed to for system uh, so that they are able to actually you know emit telemetric data. So if a system is the standalone system, it is doing something. Until unless it start emitting out information, it cannot actually you cannot do anything with it. So this OpenTelemetry actually is an open source software which formed by the merging of two, open source software projects. Where one is Open Tracing and Open Sensor. In 2019, both these projects are now archived right as of now. And OpenTelemetry is the one of the most active projects in the CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. This is the same foundation which takes care of several open source projects which is going on across the world, right? So the key, if you want to read a little bit about OpenTelemetry, then I can actually show it here. So you can go to this particular location. I will give the links in the description box. So here you can read about what is OpenTelemetry, how it came into the formation and all. And it is also pretty active. So if you want to see how much active it is, so you can see it is currently ranked 2 only after Kubernetes, which is probably one of the most important projects that CNCF has, right? So if you look at this particular Grafana dashboard, you will see that OpenTelemetry actually is quite important. So you see over here, it is just after Kubernetes. And these are all the list of open source projects that is there in CNCF. So for example, SAP integration cell uses one of these, this one, Istio. Edge integration cell uses this particular open source project. So you can go through this particular fancy dashboard and see what's going on, but that I think you get the picture. It's pretty much important. But how does it do that? And what is telemetry? So we understood it better. So telemetry, in very simple terms, is a combination of three things, basic things. One is the logs, one is the trace, and one is the metrics. So we are all generating logs in individual applications. I do not need to explain that. So if we're writing a REST API or an iFlow, we are generating logs in custom entry properties or in message processing logs. In CAP, we are generating some console logs or we are generating logs in Kibana. Workflow, automation, same thing. We are doing some work, some logging in the monitoring dashboard as well. So a log actually is essentially kind of an event which happened at a certain, you know, in certain point in time. So it actually has a timestamp associated with it. So what is the trace? A trace actually is a what you can say it is an overarching feature which connects the different logs from different systems in a meaningful way. So that is the important part. So just like if you have a system A or an application A where 10 logs are generated and application B which generates 10 logs, how do I make a sense out of these 20 logs? Is there any sense? That is actually what is trace is. Using trace, we can see or visualize that okay, how the transaction has actually processed between system A and system B. And metrics. The metrics is something which sits on top of the trace. Using metrics, you can define any sorts of KPIs or any sorts of visualization. So it could be a business KPI, it could be an infrastructure KPI. So that is the beauty of OpenTelemetry. It solves two problems in one shot. It first of all provides a universal logging feature, and it also you can define metrics on top. So that is, I think, what OpenTelemetry does. If you go to the next slide, here we see that okay, how OpenTelemetry works in reality. So let's take an example of a simple a distributed system where there is a user which supplies some data to client app one, which connects to server app one. It publishes the data to the event broker, and this app is subscribing from the same event broker, and it's supplying the same information to this user. So here we can see there are four distributed apps in operation, and one event broker is also there. So each of these app is doing some work, and this work actually is called a span. So one app can do many work. It can every unit of work actually is called a span. So for example, this user might be entering some data into this particular app, but before passing it to the server, it might do some validation. And that validation could be the act of validation itself and every span is a collection of logs or events. Because when I do a work, I'm doing a lot of, individual activities in the work itself. For example, for the validation, I may open a database connection. I may read some data from the database. I can validate and then I can close the database connection. So these are the four works that I did, the four activities that I did in the same span. And all of these are captured in something which is called a trace. All this information can be visualized in a hierarchical manner, automatically, which is taken care by the dashboard or the visualization tool. So the way it happens in practice is that all these apps that you have defined here have to be code instrumented. They have to be code instrumented using the OpenTelemetry SDK. If you're using Advanced Event Mesh automatically actually has the OpenTelemetry compliance embedded in it. So whenever certain events happens within the Advanced Event Mesh, like the act of pushing a message from the topic to a queue, the act of retrieving a message from the queue and sending it to a subscriber, all these particular actions will emit telemetric data. So you can actually have a very intricate detail of what's going on in the entire transaction. So once these apps are code instrumented, all these apps are actually then sending spans in a specialized protocol which is called OTLP protocol, this OpenTelemetry protocol. Now these particular spans are then received by a software which is called as OTLP exporter. The function of this particular exporter actually is to fine-tune the spans and do further processing on it before it could be visualized. So for example, there could be some routing logic embedded in it. Like, okay, spans generating from application A and application B should be going to Prometheus. From application C should be sent to Datadog, for an example. So that sort of a routing we can do here. If you want to enrich the logs, say for example, we want to add, okay, for this particular interface, I need to add a special header so that I can uniquely identify the interface. So any sort of a messaging which happens on the spans on uh, will happen on this OTLP exporter. And how it happens is we define some YAML pipelines here. In that YAML pipeline, we have to define what are the processes through which this span has to go through before they're fanned out to the underlying visualization software. So this component is quite essential in that respect. But you can ignore this component also. You can directly send the spans directly to this visualization software as well. But then that is not recommended because tomorrow, if you add a new, let's say, visualization tool, or if you're replacing one visualization tool with something else, or if you're upgrading, say, for example, then it will unnecessarily have to be instrumented in this application as well. So all that code, all that filtering, routing, and messaging has to be instrumented here, which will unnecessarily make them bloated. So instead of that, I delegate all this particular messaging to this specialized software, which deals only with the processing of the span. And I can keep this application business focused and just code instrumented. So that is the way telemetry has to be designed. Okay, so this is the way we design it. So next, actually, what is the benefit of it? Okay, so obviously we understood what is the log, what is the span, what is the trace, and how we can visualize it in Grafana using the different metrics. The immediate benefit that comes actually is the relationship that it builds. So OpenTelemetry can automatically it build relationships between different logs or spans coming out of different applications, provided you have instrumented them correctly. So the code instrumentation is very important. So if you have instrumented them correctly, it can build a very nice relationship between the logs coming from different systems. Once you are able to do that, then you actually have a very deep understanding of what's happening at the transactional level. So the end-to-end processing of a particular transaction, what is happening in which application, it's all available for in all these metrics. Since it builds a relationship and such a very detailed user story, I can call it as a user story also. It facilitates troubleshooting directly because when you have the entire picture laid out in front of us, you do not need to even look at code. You can practically solve issues just by reading logs, and even if they are very complex in nature, you can do that. This is also a scalable solution because these are SDKs. They are properly updated, managed by CNCF Foundation, and they are not dependent on the underlying visualization software. They're independent. They are decoupled. So scalability is very, very easy. You can easily plug in telemetry, functionality in a new upcoming application. So it is a scalable. And finally, performance monitoring. Now, it is a very, very important aspect. So you can do performance monitoring at extremely intricate level in your code. For example, if you want to, let's say you have written a very simple for loop. You want to track the time it takes to run the for loop. You can do that using telemetry. So imagine doing all the stuff manually. It will take it how bloated it will make the code, but it's all taken care by telemetric data. This telemetry data by default contains the time series data. So that is why you can do all sorts of performance monitoring at very detailed level or deep down in. So it has got probably more benefits than this, but this is what actually I feel are the top 4 benefits of OpenTelemetry. Next, let's look at the demo that we have. The demo is involving a lot of technologies that is listed out here, but the demo itself is very simple. So in very simple terms, I can tell that what this demo does is that let's say S4 on an on-prem system actually is the single source of truth of exchange rate between different currencies. And there are so many applications, customer applications, which need this information for processing. So what in this demo, what I've done is that I have used data replication framework to distribute the exchange rate from SAP S4 on on-prem to advanced event mesh via cloud integration. Once the exchange rate has arrived in this particular advanced event mesh queues, I have created a full stack app wherein actually I'm reading the message from those queues. Once I present the message, what I've read from the queue to the business user can actually validate whether that exchange rate is right or wrong. And that happens by this particular third-party app, from which the validation happens. So you can see there are so many different applications. There is cloud integration, this is advanced event mesh, there's UI5, there's CAP application. All of them are generating logs, and all of the logs will be sent out to this OpenTelemetry, which is installed in Docker, and they will be ready for visualization for to a technical user as well as to a business user. So I hope in the first part of this is the end of the first part of the video, and now we will directly launch into the second part. Hope the first part is very clear, right? So let's go to the second part. Now let us dive into the demo. So for that, let's log in into SAP first, and all the configuration of DRF is already completed. So I will not show everything because that will make the video extremely long. But all the DRF configuration is already completed, and it is now already connected with SAP CPI, right? So let us send some messages to advanced event mesh. So we will take this particular variant, and okay, it is not in test mode. So what it will do is that it will send some exchange rates from SAP to advanced event mesh using CPI, right? So if you go to the CPI, I think it's already in progress. Okay, it has finished, and you can see that some of the trace logs, LG1, what it shows that these are the traces being sent. It also confirms here, so I think this one happened. Publish exchange rate from SAP S4HANA to SAP Advanced Event Mesh. So this is able to actually send the detail to the advanced event. If we go to the cloud, to the PubSub cloud, so we have just created one simple message broker, and here we have just if you look at the message uh, broker in detail, so we have created one queue, and this queue actually contains uh, the 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 queued up message. So you see one of the messages already queued up here, and all the access control and everything is already created. So we have created some SAP CPI client profiles and ACL profile. If you look at this telemetry tab, so if you have an enterprise license for advanced event mesh, then this particular tab will be useful. So whenever some activity is happening in the broker level as well. So for example, some messages is arriving in the queue, the message is published from the queue, is getting deleted from the queue after consumption. Those kind of activities can be traced as well by connecting the advanced event mesh with a OpenTelemetry exporter. So that configuration can be possible, but you need an enterprise license for that. So now what has happened is that definitely some details are sent, right? So let me also show you the Docker setup. So if you look at the Docker setup, there are three Docker containers here. One is a Jaeger container, one is an OTel, which is OpenTelemetry exporter, and one is a Grafana. So all the three containers has to be also interconnected. So if you go to command prompt and Docker, if you do an ls, you'll find that this is the particular Docker network I have created, and all the three container images that the Jaeger container, the Hotel container, and the Grafana container, all of them are interconnected with each other. So there is a backend configuration also required for this. Maybe I'll create a video for that as well. Now let me go to the Jaeger. Okay. So if you go to the Jaeger, let me refresh it one in the last 5 minutes. So this is the latest trace which is generated. See, this is the trace, and one application has generated one span, which is CPI, right? Now let us spin up the full stack app as well. So let's log in first. And so let me spin up the full stack app. So this app actually is already instrumented properly, and it is also using an npm package which is called Soul Client JS to connect with the advanced event mesh, so that it can read all the messages from it. Okay, so let it spin up. Okay, it is now started. Let me go to the local host. Okay, still not started, I think. Check. Should be started now. Fine. So here is the app, right? So if you look at the app, actually, it is the way this is the way it looks like. Very simple app. Now, what I will do is that I will connect to the advanced event mesh. And the moment I do that, it'll consume the message which is there in the message queue, right? And it will also parse it. So the message which is in the message queue is in XML format. So it is converting it into a JSON format here. So now let's go back to the Jaeger UI and look at the trace. So here you see there are two spans now generated. One is from SAP UI5 and one is from CPI, right? And they are kind of correlated also. How they look like, you'll see it in a moment. But let's now actually get the real exchange rate from Euronext. Once I click on this, it connects with the CAP application, and the CAP is fetching the actual exchange rate from Euronext. And a very simple logic I've put, like if the rate from Euronext is more than SAP, it appears as red. If it is less than SAP, it appears as green here. Okay. So now if you go back to Jaeger, you will see that, okay, now seven spans have created. One is three from CAP, one from CPI, three from SAP UI5. If you look at the spans now, you see it prepares a nice parent-child or a hierarchical relationship between spans. And this is one of the key benefits of using telemetry because it can correlate the spans emerging from different systems, provided they are correctly instrumented, right? So if you look at this particular span, the CPI is the first initiator, followed by SAP UI5. And what it did, it parsed XML. And then SAP UI5 did a button press. After the button press, the SAP CAP endpoint was called with these parameters. An SAP endpoint had accessed the BTP service and it then read the exchange rate. So you can see that it's a nice flow of information which is taking place. Also, if you click on this one, you see that every span can be enriched with many logs. So for the sake of a demo, I have created one log, but you can create n number of logs. Here I have, logged the from currency to currency and the date of the from the SAP UI5 app, right? So there is no limit to the amount of log that can be, logged here, right? So and also you can see that how you can measure the performance. So let's look at this CAP endpoint. If you look at this CAP endpoint, it took almost 1.04 seconds to execute. Why it took 1.04? Because accessing the BTP destination service took 295 milliseconds and reading the exchange rate itself took 738 milliseconds. So you can essentially do a very deep level, intricate performance monitoring, code by code, line by line level as well. It is possible, right? So now let's click all the other buttons in the flow and fetching all the details from the. And now you see it has enriched 27 spans and it prepares a full story. So this is one of the very good benefit of using OpenTelemetry, but there is more. Okay. So if you go back and there is one deep dependency graph here, which is very, very useful. If you click on this one, you see clearly how the applications are behaving or interacting. CPI is the first initiator, followed by UI5, followed by CAP. You can also increase to one more level by, clicking on this. Here you can see that CPI had initiated UI5. In UI5, there are two distinct actions which have happened. Activities. One is parsing the XML from advanced event mesh and button press. And since there are 5 button press, there are 5 CAP, action. So imagine in a distributed landscape where so many, different technological apps are interacting with each other. They can be of different, they are written in different programming languages as well. And some of them are cloud applications, some of them are hybrid application, and some of them are integration services, some are application services, some are workflow services, automation services, or even AI services. All of them are interacting with each other, and this will present a very good, nice graph or flow of information that is taking place. So this is very, very useful in that sense, definitely. And if you go to this particular trace level, here also you can see the different visualization. So for example, if you want to see the spans table, these are the different tasks which have happened across different applications. If you can do a sort, you can see that, okay, oh, this means that this particular endpoint invocation of this particular application has taken a maximum amount of time. So you can do then some sort of an analysis of why it has taken so much time. So that kind of investigation is also possible, right? So we can just see all the spans here. Now let us go to Grafana. The Grafana is the final setup which is there on top of the Jaeger. So I can show here is that first there is a Jaeger data source which I've created. Okay, the Jaeger data source is already connected here, and I can now start building one dashboard. Okay, so let me create a dashboard here. I will add a visualization, and I will use data source as Jaeger. And that if I switch on the table view, now nothing is coming because nothing is being fetched. So I will just put in this trace ID. Okay, trace ID I will put. So now if you switch to the table view, this is the data which it is pulling from for this particular trace. The challenge is that if you switch it back, it gives this message because there is no data which is in the timestamp format, in date timestamp format. This is a JSON epoch format, so we have to do a slight convert transformation for that. I'll add this transformation. I'll do a reformatting and I'll do a convert field type. Okay, and it automatically senses that okay, start time is should be a time. Now, if I switch it back, you'll see all the nice graphs will start showing up. So here you have got so many different options, time series, bar chart. So a particular Grafana consultant who can, play around with the data very well, he or she understands how these dashboards are created. They can basically convert this table into different business and infrastructure metrics, right? And all of them will have, performance embedded into it. So if you want to see the entire only the entire trace which is available in the Jaeger will also be available here in the same way, right? So that is the benefit of using the OpenTelemetry. It has got a lot of useful features with the help of which we can control, investigate problems, find solutions to any problems faster, and it gives a very good hold on what's going on in the system, transaction by transaction level. Right? It is also easy to search through these logs. Like that, if you let's say you want to search by PO number or invoice number or sales order number, you can always do that, provided it is properly instrumented. So the key is to instrument it properly and how to, you know, configure it. The backend configuration part is pretty much important. So this was the demo, a quick demo, which showed so many technologies like PRF, SAP UI5, CAP, then the entire Docker setup, the Jaeger, the Grafana part as well. And if this kind of triggered any kind of interest with you in you, then please to reach out to me if you want to uh, explore how this can be implemented in corporate level in an industrial scale. So that can also be possible, and how relevant it is for further deep down things that can be done in BTP. If those kind of questions are there, please do drop a message in my LinkedIn, and I will be, I will be responding to them. Yeah. So thanks a lot for spending time watching this video, and have a nice day.